Coming up on this week's edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
We'll take you inside NCBA's policy-making process and explain why it's critical to the success of the beef industry. Plus, see how a good year-round herd health program can improve the profitability of your operation.
And now, NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Ochsner. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association works every day to advance the economic, political, and social interest of the U.S. cattle business, and to be an advocate for the cattle industry's policy positions and economic interests. We had a chance to ask attendees at the recent Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA trade show why they value the organization.
I'm an NCBA member because I feel that this organization does an outstanding job of representing all facets of the industry. And actually, as a cow-calf producer, I think they do a very good job of representing cow-calf producers. Their approach to, on the state level, on the government level, on the federation side with the checkoff, the people that work for NCBA are outstanding, and they do a very thorough and a very articulate job of representing our industry.
I'm an NCBA member because it's the best organization in the country, in this world, to help protect us, our beef, and what we are and who we are, and how we're going to do this industry and sell it to the people and the general public.
I like to put my money where my mouth is, and I feel that by putting together funds, all of us as a group, it gives us a powerful base that we can operate from.
I'm an NCBA member because of what this outfit does for all cattlemen. It's one of the probably premier kind of membership organizations that I belong to, because I believe they give me the value for the dollar.
I'm an NCBA member because I think it's important for us to have a voice as, a commodity production group. We are producing a food product that is pretty detached from our end consumers, and I think NCBA helps us speak in a coherent voice and tell people why beef is good here and around the world.
I am an NCBA member because of what they do in Washington, D.C. to benefit me as a cattle producer down the road. It's just, I can't be there every day, and Wall, South Dakota is a long ways from D.C., and I pick up the phone and I can talk to somebody and find out what's going on.
I'm an NCBA member to represent my own interests, from an individual, associating with other people, going out so that we can get together and have a voice.
NCBA is a grassroots organization led by producers who volunteer their time and effort to ensure the beef business remains strong and sustainable. Here to share some insights on what it's like to be a volunteer leader is Don Schiefelbein. Don, tell us a little bit about your family's operation there in Minnesota.
Yeah, well, we got a large family operation. There's 8 brothers and myself, dad and mom, and now 4 nephews back on the operation. So we got a huge family operation trying to make a living in the registered seed stock business. We also feed some cattle, and we actually own part of a sale barn.
Outstanding. And you and I have bumped into each other at a lot of meetings and a lot of organizations over the last 20 or 25 years. You volunteered an extraordinary amount of time in lots of cattle industry organizations. Why do you do that?
Well, I think the family wants me away, but I'm not certain about that. But the bottom line is, I believe we live by the credo, so as the industry goes, so does your own operation. And so if you want this industry to be successful, I think it's paramount that you give time and effort to try and do the things that make the industry successful. And I think, it goes down to that bottom line question. Somebody's got to do it.
Right.
And I guess given our family structure and the number of family members at home, I've been fortunate to have the ability to have the time to do it.
the world is run by those who show up. Is that right?
It certainly is. It certainly is.
And you have volunteered your time to a very important committee, the Policy Committee. You've served as chair. Tell our viewers just a little bit about how policy is formed within NCBA.
Well, at NCBA, it's all grassroots. So the policy basically percolates up from those at the grassroots membership. So they kind of get together, decide from a state affiliate standpoint what needs to be done or what changes need to be made. They go through their affiliate, put the policy together, submit it on to our nationals, and then it gets adopted through a grassroots vote.
Gotcha. So it really does come from the bottom up, not calling it all down. Is that right?
That's exactly right. It is grassroots, and again, we live by that policy book. So if the policy says this is what we agreed to, we are obligated to carry out those actions. So if you want something done or want something changed, it's done through the grassroots level.
So I want to ask you a very direct question. I've read a lot in the press and from some people who say that NCBA is run or controlled by the packers, and that in fact that there shouldn't be a packing processing involvement in a cattle industry organization. What do you say to that criticism?
Well, I'm the policy chairman, right?
Right.
And to this day, I haven't a packer call and tell me what we ought to be doing. I've had many, many producers tell me what to do. So it's important they're part of the process, but by gosh, the majority of the influence is cow-calf producers, as it should be, and that's precisely what's occurring. So I think we're in good hands.
Very good. Thank you so much for all the leadership you provided our industry. We greatly appreciate that.
Thank you, Kevin.
Now, if you'd like to stay up to date on all the key issues and events from DC, one way is by becoming a member of NCBA. Members receive the Beltway Beef newsletter. That's a weekly report straight from our capital that gives an up-to-date summary of top policy initiatives that'll impact your business. Joining is easy. Just call 1-866-233-3872, or you can visit the website ncba.org. Still to come on Cattlemen to Cattlemen, we'll examine NCBA's policy-making process and why it's important to the long-term success of the industry. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Don't miss the 2020 NCBA Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C. It's your opportunity to meet with congressional and federal agency leaders to let them know where cattlemen and women stand on critical issues that impact the cattle business and our way of life. Together, we can do more. Make plans to be in Washington, D.C., March 31st to April 2nd for the 2020 NCBA Legislative Conference. Details at ncba.org.
We didn't just design the 6M tractors with you in mind. We designed them with you by our side. The new 6M tractors from John Deere, reimagined by you, for you. With improved visibility, better maneuverability, and more ways to customize, so you get everything you need and nothing you don't. Experience the new 6M at your local John Deere dealer.
When we ask cattlemen and women why they value NCBA, one of the most common answers is because of the work done on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. And joining us now to talk more about these efforts is Todd Wilkinson. He's the chair of NCBA's Policy Division. Todd, let's begin. Tell folks just a little bit of the background of yourself and your own operation.
Sure. I'm in a cow-calf operation with my son. He's been in it with me now for 15, 16 years. And then my family has Redstone Feeders, which is a finishing operation. We finish about 20,000 head a year in a confined feeding operation, monoslopes. Sure. Given that I'm from South Dakota, you can appreciate the need for being under roof.
Absolutely, especially after last year, right?
Absolutely, that is correct. It was a distinct advantage to be able to take them out of the mud.
Yeah. So you devote a lot of your own personal time to serving in positions, and certainly the chair of the policy division requires an enormous amount of time. Why do you do that?
You know, I just went through the interview process just minutes ago before coming over here, and what I told those people that were interviewing me is, if I'm going to make this big of an investment from the cattle standpoint and from a life investment, I feel like I need to be involved in the operation and actually having some input. And I have found that NCBA is the one voice that gives me the ability to move the needle.
That's outstanding. And tell folks sitting back home, how is policy shaped and determined within this organization?
Well, that's the great thing about NCBA. Policy is shaped from the ground up. Literally, the people that are at this convention and that gather at our summer conference, they're shaping the future of this organization. They're bringing their policy here. We debate it, we approve it, amend it, and then from that, the officers implement that policy in conjunction with our staff.
So you really don't have your marching orders just yet, but you will very quickly have the marching orders for 2020. What do you anticipate some of the key policy priorities will be?
Well, I think a couple of them will come as no surprise. Traceability is obviously going to be one that we need to move forward on. It's a struggle because of all the moving parts. Sustainability, I mean, it may sound odd, but I never would have dreamed 20 years ago that I would be standing anywhere talking about sustainability, and yet lenders are interested, our customers are interested, so we've got to be involved in that issue.
So you said that NCBA is a grassroots-driven organization. Why is it so important to have such a strong membership base if we're going to achieve the goals you want to achieve in Washington, D.C.?
Well, probably the biggest thing is for the average producer out there, if you really want your voice heard, you need to be involved in NCBA because that's your mechanism. Sure. If you're just out there complaining about the industry and you don't want to do anything about it, right, that's your choice, but then don't complain to me. Right. If you actually want to do something, then step up to the plate, get involved in the membership level, and come on in and enjoy the water. It's nice.
Right, make your voice heard, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for all you do and all you're going to do for our industry in the year ahead. We appreciate you coming.
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
You bet. Every day, the NCBA staff is working on the policy issues that matter to cattle producing families. Join in the fight for our industry's future by becoming an NCBA member. You can call 1-866-233-3872 or visit the website ncba.org. Still ahead, you'll get an exclusive look at NCBA's policymaking process at the recent Cattle Industry Convention. Don't go away. We'll have more right after this.
Now a BQA tip from the Beef Quality Assurance Program.
One of the first things we need to do when we receive a new set of calves is determine the risk of these cattle for developing respiratory disease. We can buy calves at a very low risk or calves at a very high risk. And this difference is based mostly upon source of the calves. Are they direct from a ranch, or they purchased through a livestock auction and they're commingled? The age of the calves, the younger the calf, the greater the risk of respiratory disease, and also any prior history of prevention practices that the calves have had. You know, have they been vaccinated previously and so forth. So as we think about how we're going to process those calves, let's work with our veterinarian to determine what's going to be useful and helpful to the calves and also be cost effective. There's several other things we do to calves that are stressful, and stress of course increases the risk of bovine respiratory disease or pneumonia. Such things as castration, managing horns, branding and so forth need to be done with great skill and be done in a manner that will result in the least amount of stress as possible on these calves. And finally, acclimating calves to the new environment. So instead of just turning calves loose and then we ride in and look for sick calves every day, develop a practice of acclimating these calves to you and your horse or your four-wheeler, or walking in these calves depending on how you check them, so that when we check calves or we move them from one place to another, it's the least stress possible on the animals.
Find out more about beef quality assurance at bqa.org.
Welcome back. NCBA takes a lot of pride in being an organization where policy begins at the grassroots level. Matt Fleck has a look at this policy-making process.
NCBA policy begins and ends with cattle producers in their county and state organizations. So when Oregon producers were concerned about the potential for problems with beef labeling, they got together and addressed it.
we had some producers from Harney County that wanted to bring a resolution forward because they were concerned that beef was being as little as just repackaged and then labeled as product of the United States.
The issue and concern was mislabeled product that had product of the USA on it, and whether that was verified product, where it was actually from the USA or from another country, or what it was. And that's where we all started.
It was an important enough issue that we brought that forward to the NCBA, the summer business meeting in 2019, to the International Trade Committee. And at that point, frankly, we got a fair little amount of pushback from even before the committee meeting, and there were a lot of people that were concerned, what's this going to do as far as international trade ramifications? Is this going to be a WTO issue? And it was a little bit of an uphill swim to get people to understand this is not a cool thing. This is just, if you're going to label it, we want it to be right.
As a result of the discussion on beef labeling in NCBA's International Trade Committee, a working group representing all industry sectors was formed to dig deeper into the issue. Their directive? To report back to the committee at the annual Cattle Industry Convention on their findings.
So for the International Trade Committee, we were tasked with investigating some concerns about transparency in labeling. For a while, some producers have been concerned that foreign product was being brought to the United States and relabeled or mislabeled as a product of the U.S. And so we were tasked with looking into this and finding out if this is an issue, and if so, what can the NCBA do to address it?
We did have producers from all over the country and from all sectors of the industry as well. There's cow-calf guys and feedlot guys and packing house guys and auction yard guys. And, everybody was involved in that, and everybody had really good input. And being able to look at this issue from a 360-degree angle was really important for making sure that it was going to be an outcome that worked for all of the sectors. Because as a cow-calf guy, I don't know what a feedlot guy is going through, and it was important to have all of that so that we could come up with a product that really worked for the industry.
This kind of showed me the importance of our grassroots mentality within NCBA. We have to have this grassroots. It has to come from our local, state associations on up, and this is what it did. And I really thank Oregon for bringing this to our attention. From our research from USDA, we found that there was a problem. If a product was processed in the United States and had a USDA process label on it, it could slap that product of USA label on the product. So we knew we had a problem.
It was our job to engage directly with USDA, to engage with the retail sector and with the rest of the supply chain, just to get a better idea of what is going on. What we found is that there are some instances where some labels are questionable, but we still don't know the extent of the problem, and so that was one of the things we wanted to look into, is to find out, is this isolated or is this a much larger issue? But even with that, the working group decided that the NCBA needs to engage directly with USDA and find out what we can do to make sure that any of that product that carries a product of the USA label is verified. At the same time, we have international trade obligations that we have to respect, and we don't want to do anything that could potentially violate the WTO and trigger retaliation. And so this is a very sensitive issue. It's something of importance, and that's why it was such a priority for the International Trade Committee.
And the solution we came up with was to have, if it has a product of USA or any other description of origin on it, that it goes through a verified process. And we already have that verified process within AMS. It's called PVPs, and that's where we ended up. Our policy proposal, and Oregon is going to bring its proposal back up, and it's going to state that we now want, if it's a product of origin label, a voluntary label, we want to know some type of verification program using our verification system we already have in place with AMS.
Today's meeting was a success because it not only gave staff further direction but it also sent a clear message of what NCBA's policy is, and that is NCBA is going to support voluntary labels, but we want to make sure that they're verified. We want to make sure that there's truth in the labeling, and that our beef that we do such a good job raising is properly marketed, and that no one else can claim to be a product they're not, and that is U.S. beef. So this is a success for NCBA. It's evidence of the grassroots direction and the producer-led framework of the organization.
The goal of NCBA has always been and will always be to provide a path for grassroots voices to be heard and policy to be formed based on industry collaboration. This process allows NCBA staff to carry out the directives of its members.
I am very comfortable with the process that we went through here. You know, we completely reworked the language of the resolution, but what we're getting here today is a product that is successful in my mind. It addresses the issue that Oregon producers are concerned about. It addresses the issues that all of these grassroots producers, because after Oregon brought it up, NCBA leadership went around the country and said, what are you guys hearing about this? And everybody was worried about this. It was a big deal, and it's a perfect example in my mind of how these grassroots issues come up from a county association to a state association to the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and it's now policy, and it's not only policy, but we're actively working and being successful at implementing the changes at a regulatory level that are going to make our guys more successful.
I think, coming from a small community in Virginia that has a voice, my voice starts at the local level, through the state level, and national. If I didn't have that grassroots, I wouldn't be involved with it.
As someone who's worked for NCBA for a number of years, I can tell you that it's days like this that really drive home the meaning of what it is to work for a grassroots-led organization. We get our direction straight from the members. When they see a problem, they bring it forward, ask us to engage, and we do. And so I think today's actions only solidify the importance of NCBA.
From the NCBA International Trade Committee meeting in San Antonio, I'm Matt Fleck for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
Still to come, we'll head to Missouri for a look at some of the tactics and products producers can use to help ensure healthy, productive calves. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Are you concerned about the impact government policies could have on your cattle business? One way to make your voice heard in Washington is by joining NCBA. When you join, you'll have access to key policy updates and insights from Beltway Beef. It's the best way to hear directly from NCBA's DC team. Beltway Beef provides valuable policy information, and it's free for NCBA members. Stay in touch with Beltway Beef. Join now at ncba.org.
Your land is more than a business. It's a heritage that has been passed down from those who tended it before you, by those who shaped it, changed it, and cared for it. Your land has a legacy, one that you carry on, but also one you build on. At Corteva Agriscience, we are the stewards of a lasting legacy. We have a responsibility to Dow AgroSciences to maintain the relationships and trust they built, and to build upon those foundations. To help you care for your land, to provide innovations that help you protect the hard work and investment you've poured into it. To help you build a legacy that can be passed on for generations to come. Corteva Agriscience.
Preventative health management practices, including nutrition, vaccinations, deworming, and an overall quality preconditioning program, can get your calves headed in the right direction. Brian Baxter has more on how one Missouri producer is working to set his calves up for success.
It's sunrise at Sycamore Creek in Fayette, Missouri. To Wayne Vandewert, it's some of the best and most beautiful cow country.
This is cattle country, and the grass, the rolling hills, the trees, adequate rainfall. And I'm from Minnesota originally, and I tell people that I'm the biggest non-native fan of Missouri agriculture that there is. We purchased this farm about 7 years ago. This land was primarily in crop, and we converted it back to grass. We run primarily a fall calving herd and produce Sim Angus cattle.
Sycamore Creek markets bulls private treaty to commercial producers and also sells bred heifers at special cow sales. Wayne knows a good herd health program is an important key to providing his customers the best genetics possible.
When I think about cattle producers, usually the first top thing that comes to mind is getting a live calf on the ground. And then the next thought should be, how do we keep these guys healthy? They've got a big journey ahead of them. We know as soon as they get sick with any sort of disease, the future journey isn't as bright as it would be if they were healthy. And so getting them started right would be getting those animals started on a herd health protocol when they're 1 to 4 months of age, starting to think about your vaccines and your dewormers, and then obviously following them through that, through weaning, through the backgrounding phase. All of those things will help keep those animals healthy and profitable for your operation. And we know as long as they stay healthy, they can live up to their genetic potential to be the best steer, the best heifer that roams the planet.
We've worked closely with our vet, Dr. Potter, on developing a herd health plan, an annual plan that it revolves around our breeding season and our calving season and when we wean calves and when we give shots and things. And that's been critical. We've developed, I think, a pretty good plan. It's still a work in progress. We're making some modifications to that plan, but it's to protect the calf from some of the respiratory diseases. It's to help maintain pregnancies, of course, in our breeding cow herd, and setting our young heifers, our replacement heifers, up with adequate protection.
The herd health protocol is vital. It's something that in my practice I'm continually thinking about. I put a lot of thought into recommendations that I make. I put a lot of thought into how I can help their bottom line. Wayne is progressive. Wayne asks challenging questions. We learn something every day when we're out here. We're constantly changing our management program.
When we're talking about a herd health protocol, people usually think just vaccines and dewormers, but in reality, it's whole herd. And so it's very important to have their nutrition right up to par as far as what you're feeding them, hay and grains and things like that. It's very important when you're handling them, so when you're moving them from pasture to pasture or when you're working them through facilities to be able to vaccinate and deworm them, it's very important to handle them very gently. Less stress will allow them to respond to all of the things we're doing to them, like vaccines, a little better, and their immune system can handle those things and respond better and fight diseases better in the long run.
Disease prevention is one objective of a good herd health program, and well thought out practices also allow a proven path to antibiotic stewardship, a topic that's becoming increasingly important to consumers.
Disease prevention is very important to us from an economic standpoint, as well as an animal welfare standpoint. And fortunately, we've not had a lot of disease problems because of the herd health program that we have, and that makes our job, first of all, a lot easier. It's better for the animals, and it's better for our bottom line if we're not fighting diseases.
When we think about herd health, vaccines obviously is going to come to front of mind. And I think people need to understand what vaccines do. So vaccines, right, are using similar diseases that those calves are going to run into later in their lives. And we're training that animal's immune system so it knows how to fight off those diseases when he runs into them later in life. Vaccines, in my opinion, are twofold. So we're going to decrease the number of animals that get sick, and we're going to decrease the severity of that sickness. There's still going to be animals that maybe don't respond to those vaccines, and so they can still get some of the diseases that cause pneumonia and respiratory disease that cattle have. When that happens, that's when producers and veterinarians have to make the decision whether an antibiotic is appropriate to treat this animal. When we think about how we utilize antibiotics, producers and veterinarians work very closely together to make sure that they pick the right antibiotic for the right disease, they use the right dose, and they follow all the withdrawal times.
Antibiotics are vital for what I do as a veterinarian. It is a serious discussion, and I have watched the industry change with antibiotic use, and a lot of that change has been from outside entities. We need to be proactive rather than reactive.
For Wayne and other producers like him, crafting the right herd health program so a calf's journey is a healthy one ultimately makes a direct impact on profitability. And a valuable resource for the right program is a veterinarian.
Every operation is different, as we all know, and veterinarians are going to be the best to be able to put together a herd health protocol specific for your individual operation, understanding that your operation might be a little bit different from your neighbors down the street.
These are the times where we can make a lot of improvements on what we're doing. Wayne is constantly thinking about what we can do to change things, and my job as a veterinarian is to help him, to assist him, to use some of this this new training, this new research that I've learned about, and can we change the herd health protocol in order to be better for his operation?
The one thing that sets us apart from competitive protein sources in the marketplace, because we can provide something that tastes different. And so we put a lot of emphasis on that here, because we want our commercial cattlemen to produce a better product as well. We have a reputation to uphold for a quality, a safe quality product. It's nutritionally a premium product for the human population.
From the Show Me State of Missouri, I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
And joining us now from Beringer Ingelheim is Dr. John Davidson. And Dr. Davidson, let's talk about the importance of early calf health.
You bet, Russell. One of the, used to be a big mystery was what happens when we vaccinate young calves, knowing that they probably had good solid maternal antibody. And what we know now and what has been shown in studies time and time again is there's a critical opportunity at what it is traditionally marking or branding time where we can protect those calves for diseases that they will face later in their lives, which are primarily respiratory and clostridial. And so the opportunity exists to move some vaccinations up earlier in that calf's life, and it will successfully provide a basis for long-term immunity even in the face of maternal antibody.
And this really does tie into overall producer profitability, doesn't it?
Absolutely. What in a traditional protocol where we would have marking or branding, pre-weaning and weaning, now we can successfully move that intermediate pre-weaning step up to that first processing event, saving on labor and really not compromising health in any way.
And before we let you go, how much does Beringer Ingelheim truly value its relationship with the producer through partnerships with the National Cattlemen's Beef Association?
Beringer Ingelheim is a family-owned animal health business. We know that much of our business here at the NCBA, these are family operations and organizations. We have a similar philosophy. We all put cattle first. We value those relationships, and we really enjoy being a trusted ally and advisor when it comes to calf health for our beef cattle operations in the U.S. and worldwide.
Absolutely. Well, as always, we appreciate you for joining us a little bit here on Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
You bet. Always a pleasure to see you, Russell.
Thank you very much. And that's going to do it for now from the Beringer Ingelheim booth here at the NCBA Trade Show. With that, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.
Coming up next, we'll take you inside a state-of-the-art forage harvester from New Holland and explain how it can improve an operation's bottom line. Stay with us.
Saddle up and make your way to the Gaylord Rockies in Denver for the 2020 Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting. This is your chance to get updates on critical beef industry issues, opportunities, and policies. Plus, meet and work with industry leaders and your fellow cattlemen and women. Mark your calendar for the 2020 Cattle Industry Summer Business Meeting, July 27th to 30th at the Gaylord Rockies in Denver. Find out more and register at ncba.org.
Higher quality feed can make a real difference to an operation's bottom line. Brian Baxter shows us how some custom forage operators in California are using equipment from New Holland to produce a better product for their customers.
A silage pile is a common sight at beef feedlots and dairy farms across the country. That's because whether they're beef or dairy cattle, they need high-quality feed. In the dairy country of Central California, the corn grows 14 feet high, and chopping corn silage is a fast-paced, demanding job.
We've got hot days and very, very fertile soil that we can grow, really tall hybrids. And so when it comes to chopping, you've got to have the kind of power it's needed to be able to run that feed through a machine and process it. And, so it's real important to have a forage harvester that can do that.
It's all about feed nutrition for the animals, milk production. They got to get the most they can out of this corn crop. They take 3 months to grow it, certain varieties, 4 months sometimes, and there's a lot of money into it, and they got to get the best feed quality out of it. That's to survive in the business. That's just what it is.
Here in California, we're blessed with high yields, big corn. Behind me is New Holland's flagship machine, the FR920, with a 10-row corn head. This machine is capable of 400 tons per hour in the right conditions. Phenomenal performance.
When we see 12 rows of corn feeding through a machine, it's impressive, right, that we can do that. And we're filling trucks within 2 minutes with, again, 10, 15 ton of feed, and even more so if the trucks are bigger. So it's quite amazing to watch the technology and what we've been able to do with engines and horsepower, along with wear components and crop flow design. It's been a good thing.
High capacity in the field is valuable, allowing forage harvesters to get more tons out of the field and into the silage pile. But even more critical is the quality of the feed, and that begins with the most complete processing of the corn as it goes through the harvester.
We want length of cut to be a certain length because of our butterfats and the fiber in the diet. We want it to be digestible, and we want those kernels broken up really well so the cow can digest it. If you don't have a good processor, you've got kernels going out the backside of a cow that never gets actually utilized and wasted.
Processing in just the last 5 years has become very, very important, and it's been driven by the starch intake of the cow. So in layman's terms, we have an X amount of time from when the cow eats the feed until it exits the cow to absorb all the protein, all the starches that we can. So research has found that if we take one kernel of corn and we break it in half, you get about half of that starch retention. If we break it in a quarter, again, a quarter of that. So now the processors become very, very important because we actually want to reduce that kernel into little bitty pieces. So the more pieces you put through the cow's stomach, the more possibility for the starch absorption, the protein. So we're getting more bang out of the feed before it exits the cow.
The demands are very high as far as kernel processing and feed quality and everything else and the right moisture. That's the biggest demand, and that's what they expect. And we are here to provide it the best way we can, and New Holland helps us do that.
The processor is a big thing for us. It's probably the key thing for corn, and they've done some changes to their processors by putting another extra belt on there so we don't have no slippage. And that's probably the most important part of a forage harvester is length of cut and the processing, and we like what we see with the 920 and what it's doing.
Another critical factor is chopping the corn at the right moisture. With the New Holland 920 Forage Cruiser, near-infrared technology is now available, letting the operator track crop moisture as they move through the field.
So NIR stands for near infrared reflectance. It's the light wave spectrum just below visible light that we see today. So what we're doing is we're actually seeing the sensor on the machine right now, which is in the crop flow with a round light source, and we're reflecting a light source down to the crop, and it reflects back, and we're able to then utilize that technology to measure what that actual moisture is as it goes through the machine real time.
So putting the moisture up correctly is key to good silage, and we all know that. So, and again, with that integration of technology, it gives us live time as the chopper's running what our moisture is, so we can catch a part of the field if it's too dry or it's too wet instantly. So we're not putting loads into the pile that are too wet that can basically not contaminate the pile, but it obstructs, putting up a good pile. So that's why the technology now, we want it live, real time on the chopper as we're going through the field.
One key benefit of the near-infrared system that we see on the machine today is we're actually able to measure ash. It's the only system and machine on the industry that's able to do that in real time. And that's a key driver, right? When you're talking about quality forage and feed delivered to the cows, maintaining your ash levels is something that nutritionists are always trying to minimize, right? So if we can understand what that looks like in the field as we're chopping real time, maybe we can make some adjustments, whether we raise the cutter head or we change from a rake to a basket rake or something in the windrow formations. Anything we can do to help reduce the ash here will benefit us in the barns, in the feed rations, as those nutritionists are doing that. And we're able to see that real time in the cab. So it's pretty cool, it's pretty exciting to see that we're able to see that now and quantify what that looks like in the cab.
By having the moisture lab in the cab, it's easy for the driver to run the machine and be able to glance over and see where the moisture's at all times. So it's just a real nice feature. And this machine has a lot going on, so the easier you can make it to operate, the better you're going to be out in the field as far as keeping the feed in the truck. And so the way they've laid that cab out with the joystick and all the operations on the joystick and having the moisture lab right to your side makes running this cab and visibility a lot better when you're out in the field.
In addition to the technology, the experts say it's vital to keep these high-capacity machines well cared for to ensure they can be chopping the crop all day, every day.
Maintenance is number one on forage harvesters because of the environment they're in, making sure your knives are sharp. Every morning, basically, there's a sharpening system on the forage harvester, so make sure your knives are sharp, make sure your shear bar is set right, your gap in your kernel processor. Again, just making sure everything is tuned up and ready to go each and every day, and even during the day.
When you're out here chopping and you've got 8 trucks out here under one machine and the chopper goes down, you've got 8 people standing still while that chopper is being repaired. And Garton's been really good about either if it's something we can't fix ASP out in the field, we're getting a chopper from their store over here and using it as a backup until we figure out our problem on the other one. So without a doubt, that's meant customer care has been great.
From the Central Valley of California, I'm Brian Baxter reporting for NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen.
For more information on how tools and equipment from New Holland can help improve your operations bottom line, visit the website newholland.com. Still ahead, it's time for a visit with our good friend Baxter Black. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
When the field is your office, you never get tired of going to work. Cut, rake, bale, repeat. New Holland offers the power and versatility to get through the day. From small squares to large squares and everything in between, New Holland has you covered. Visit your local dealer today to find out more.
At Leachman Cattle, we're committed to building more profitable cattle. As a third-generation seed stock producer, our family has been in this business for over 80 years. Today, we have the best technology ever to build more profitable cattle. Our dollar profit index is a leader in the industry to help you balance all the traits that drive your bottom line. Give us a call or go to www.leachman to learn more.
We know you're up before the dawn because the cattle rise before the sun. And you spend long hours in the saddle because the herd isn't always over the next rise. And you care for the land because you know it takes care of your family. And we know you do great work. And it's time to tell that story to the marketplace. IMI Global is here to help you do just that.
We were working a bunch of replacement heifers a while back up on the Little Willer. Louie runs the cows up there. I was working the squeeze and Louie was working the head. Louie'd reach around and grab the heifer when she come in and snap on the nose tongs and pull her up so I could draw a little blood and check her ears for the tattoos. And then when he was done, he'd just throw them tongs back on the ground and let her out. Finally, it dawned on him that it was sure tiresome work picking them tongs up every time, so he tied the shank of the nose tongs to his belt. Tied them on good. And then all he had to do when one come in was just grab that shank, flip her up, catch the tongs, and snap them on the cow. Dally up, pull her tight, and then when he was done, he'd just drop them, and he didn't have to bend over and pick them up every time. Oh, he was proud. We got to bragging on him. He got to flipping it behind his back and through his legs and around his head. Kind of broke up the monotony of the day. Then one of these heifers come a-roaring in. She stuck both her front feet through that head catch along with her head. I had her hip locked with a squeeze. Now, Louie's a big fella, and he grabbed her around the neck like a bulldogger. He reached down with his left hand and snapped them tongs on her snout, and I'll be danged if she didn't escape. Off we went. I mean, I got her by the tail with both hands. She was going flat out. I was sailing behind her like a water skier. Louie was running neck and neck with her around that corral, trying to keep the slack out of that line to keep from getting drugged to death, and he wasn't having any luck. She hit the trash barrel and sent junk flying everywhere. Louie was running right beside her, taking great big steps. His eyes about that big around, and he was screaming, "Don't let her go, boys! Don't let her go!" The dust is boiling up, and the last thing I see before I go down is Louie out on the end of that tong rope, swinging like a rock in David's slingshot. When the dust settled, he was laying there up against a creosote post. I thought I saw tar coming through the front of his shirt. This is Baxter Black from out there.
Out here, you know what needs to be done, and you know what it means to those you're doing it for. But every sunrise brings something new, with the weather, the soil, the markets, your machinery. You can't always predict what it will be. So it's good to know that Ram trucks are more than capable of helping you get it done right.
For commercial cow-calf producers, crossbreeding with Gelbvieh and Balancer is the smart, reliable, and profitable choice. Gelbvieh and Balancer females offer maternal superiority through increased fertility, greater longevity, and more pounds of calf weaned per cow exposed. In the feed yard, Balancer cattle deliver increased performance, improved feed efficiency, and excellent carcass merit. Balancer adds the pounds, make the grade, and deliver the value. Gelbvieh and Balancer, the smart, reliable, and profitable choice. Find out more at the website gelbvieh.org.
NCBA is fortunate to partner with a number of great organizations, and we're pleased to be announcing a new partnership with Nationwide Insurance. With me now is Corbin Schuler with Nationwide, and Corbin, we appreciate your support of NCBA and look forward to a strong partnership. So tell us just a little bit about Nationwide. A lot of people may not realize just how deep a roots you have in agriculture.
Yeah, it's actually a really unique story. Back in 1926, the Ohio Farm Bureau at that time actually was looking for a way, and it was a group of farmers to actually find protection for their auto insurance. So from that time until now, that's actually when Nationwide started back in 1926. And so got a really 90 plus years of protecting farmers, and that's how we became who we are.
And is it true you are the #1 insurer of farms and ranches?
Yes, we are. We are number one actually in the entire U.S. We have about 13% of the market share, and so it's been a very cool thing to share with potential customers. So,
I found something else interesting when we were talking moments ago. You said that your CEO is actually a farm kid himself. Tell us more.
Yeah, so actually we had Steve Rasmussen that recently retired back in October, and Kurt Walker took over and is the new CEO of Nationwide, and actually actively manages his farm back in Iowa in Algona. So
it's neat to have somebody that understands some of the risks and nuances of agriculture.
It's really cool, and to be able to talk to prospective clients about, we make decisions based off of what the farmer needs, because we have obviously a CEO. We actually have majority of our board of directors are actually current active farmers as well. So they're making the right decisions for the necessities of a farmer.
So tell us about some of the tools that you have that may be interesting to some of our viewers.
Yeah, what's unique is we actually use kind of a motto that's really farm to table, as we kind of call it. Essentially that's from anywhere from a hobby farm all the way up to your commercial ag operations. So for cattle specific, could be your feedlots to even just your cow-calf operations. And what's unique about our product is we can actually do whether you've got dwellings and autos plus then your actual livestock needs, we can do that all in one policy in one package. And that's not something that's typical in the industry, and so we're very proud of that. So.
That's outstanding. So obvious question, where can people go to find out more?
Yeah, I'd really suggest to send you to farmagentfinder.com. That'll enter your just enter your zip code there, and then what it'll do is it'll actually pull up a certified agent with us closest to you and reach out to them, and they'll know our product and be able to discuss getting a quote for you.
That's outstanding. So thank you so much for your partnership with NCBA.
You bet.
And as Corbin said, for more information, go to farmagentfinder.com. Want to rewatch an episode of Cattlemen to Cattlemen or catch up on anything you've missed? Then visit YouTube and subscribe to the Cattlemen to Cattlemen page. Not only will you find the current week's show, it's also another chance to see Baxter Black. So check out and subscribe to the Cattlemen to Cattlemen page on YouTube. Well, that wraps up this edition of NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. Thanks so much for spending time with us. We'll see you again next week right here on RFD TV.